Well, I'm State Senator Mike Fulmer. I represent the 48th District of Pennsylvania, which represents all of Lebanon County, southern Dauphin County, and portions of northern York County.
David Arnold, District Attorney of Lebanon County, and Falcon alumni, class of 1989.
My name is Charlie Jones. I am currently a judge in the Court of Common Pleas in Lebanon County.
My name is Nicole Malineski, and I am the principal of Cedar Crest High School.
My name is Mariah Reckley. I'm the principal at Cedar Crest Middle School.
Sure, I'm Corporal Wade Aki with the South Lebanon Township Police Department.
My name is Steve Trivioli. I'm the School Resource Officer at Cedar Crest Middle School.
I'm Justin Schlappen. I'm one of the school police officers here for the Cornwall Lebanon School District.
I'm Phil Domanczyk. I'm Superintendent of the Cornwall Lebanon School District.
Hi, I'm Frank Ryan. I'm the State Representative for the 101st District, which is a State House of Representatives district in Pennsylvania, which is the eastern portion of Lebanon County, includes Cedar Crest, and I live in Cornwall, Pennsylvania. So it's just a great area, and I love being here. Thanks for asking.
My first experiences with the middle school was when I came to the middle school as a Dean of Students, Assistant Principal in 1996. That was my very first experience here.
We decided to finally move to Cornwall, but by that point in time, all my kids were through school. So none of my children went here, but I had a chance to be real active in the community and attend a lot of the events here. So I actually fell in love with it.
So I arrived at Cedar Crest Middle School as a brand new 22-year-old college graduate. This was my first job, and my classroom was in the Skylight Locker area.
I have 3 kids. My first experience with Cedar Crest Middle School dealt with my oldest, obviously, Charlie, and just him coming to school here.
My first experience was going to class here at the middle school a long time ago, back in the 1980s. I was a student here at Cedar Crest.
It was a long time ago. My first experience was when I was a 6th grader coming here from Cornwall Elementary. I met a lot of new people because all of the elementary schools got together. Some of those people are still my friends to this day.
Looking back, our conflicts probably were actually very silly things, but at the time, we would have conflict over the issues. Things such as, who was in line for lunch first, who was going to sit in what desk in the classroom, things like that were issues for us back then. That, like I said, looking back on it, they seem kind of silly now.
When I was younger, you didn't have that constant barrage of information that came about, and you didn't have the social media issue, which as I've gotten elected to office, social media is a big part of what I do, and I now have a much better perspective of what younger people are dealing with when you see the multiple different ways that people can communicate, and how people, because of the anonymous nature of social media, might make comments that are pretty hurtful.
Our conflicts, I think, we're not faced with what we did today. We didn't have the same complexities that they do today, and I guess that's because I'm getting older. I'm starting to sound like my father. It was better times then, but in all honesty, we didn't face what these students are facing today.
Middle school is always kind of a challenging position to be in. So you're not quite a little kid anymore, but you're not quite a high school student. You're kind of caught right there in the middle. So it's a difficult experience to be in. Trying to fit in with certain groups, whether it's the academic groups, the sports kids, and things like that. So it's difficult to find your position. So and at times I can see where there's some conflict that might come up.
I think the biggest conflicts, I don't know that they're that much different than they are now. I think the differences a lot of times come to be how people view other people, meaning that people look at their different groups that they're in, they look at their different peer groups. A lot of times people put down people, and usually it's done so that they can make themselves feel better than others. It's because of their own insecurities. But all in all, it hasn't really changed. It's just the way we do it. The thing now that's different is that people can do it so much more quickly, and it can spread so much more rapidly because of that ability to communicate that way.
Middle school for me was probably my roughest time growing up. I grew very fast. I grew about 4 inches over the summertime from my 7th to 8th grade year, and I got made fun of a lot for being tall, and my clothing didn't fit. And my family, we really didn't have the money to get clothing, so I had to deal with being bullied and teased for my height. So middle school was probably my roughest.
I think conflicts were resolved a lot of the same way we probably do it now. You had to talk to each other. You had to address the conflicts, whether it was talking to your friend who is mad at you, or talking to a teacher or a parent.
People could actually sit down, have a conversation, or that they could just have it out. If you disagree with somebody, you disagree with them, and then you had a conversation, and then you moved on.
Some of the best ways to address those conflicts, don't be so concerned about separating your differences between people as to accepting what those differences are. It's okay to have a difference of opinion with someone, but you still need to respect the rights of that other person. The concern comes when someone makes threats or someone tries to harm someone else. Then talking is over with that person. You need to withdraw yourself from that and seek the advice of staff or your parents or things like that.
The one thing that people probably hear me say over and over again is that it's all about relationships. That you have to build relationships with people. You have to get to know people. You have to know who people are, what their background is, what their situations are. The more you know about people, the more you can make connections to people, the more people are willing to have conversations and open up, and I think that is a key to all of our communication, to our success as a building, is having a culture where people can talk to each other and where you have relationships with people and where you feel comfortable in a safe place.
Really just working very hard to try to find a common goal. We all want to do well in our jobs. We all want to do well with our families and our lives. So it's important that we communicate with each other. If we have issues, to talk our way through them, to try to find a common ground on whatever the issues may be.
Well, I suppose you're not going to follow somebody unless they put in the work and the time and the effort. It's a lot harder to get people to follow you if you are not at work, or when you're at work, you're not doing your job. I tried to show up earlier than everybody else, stay later, come back after hours, put in the time, put in the effort.
Education. Educate, educate, educate. It's great to be an advocate. You can be out there and you can jump up and down, yell and scream and run in circles and all that. But if you want to get something done, whether it's in life as trying to sell, I was always in sales, so you're educating your clients about your product line because you're building relationships.
I think the best thing is to listen and understand where people are coming from. Realize that you don't really know what that person is dealing with. You don't know what challenges they have, or whether they had a bad day at home, or what's going on in their life. And that you really ought to try to listen and understand that person before you go and try to be unkind to them or be disrespectful to them. And I think if people could do that and operate with a sense of kindness, I think that can make a huge difference, not only here at Cedar Crest Middle School, but also really with how we treat people in our society and here within our country. I think there's a lot to be said for how we treat one another.
The big thing is everybody's different, but there are also some similarities between other people, and capitalizing on those similarities help bring people together who may not be. When you find that similarity with somebody, it just may kick off into a new friendship.
Same thing, if you see a friend of yours that's being picked on or maybe having a bad day, be able to read their body language, know how they feel. If they look sad, ask them how they're doing. They may not want to talk, but just talking to them and sitting there next to them might be all that they need to know that you care. Let people know you care, and that's how I did it, is let people, when I was in foreign countries, I let people know that I care. When I was in Iraq, Afghanistan, Haiti and other parts of the world, just let people know that we care about one another. So we can be of all different backgrounds, and it doesn't matter, because we're all human beings, and we all have to care for one another to get through this with as great degree of happiness as we possibly can.
Some of the things that we try to express through the police department is, we'll have neighbor complaints fairly frequently. And, a lot of times, we would suggest to the parties involved, well, have you talk with your neighbor about it? And many times they haven't done that. They've experienced some sort of noise complaint, a problem with their pets, or the neighbor's pet's in my yard, or things like that, and their instantaneous response is to call the police department. Well, that sets up a situation where it's almost like an adversarial type situation. Oh, you called the police on me? Well, then the next time they do something wrong, they call the police on them. So it never really resolves the situation, it just makes it worse. Whereas if they would just talk with their neighbor and say, look, this is going on, is there something you could do about it?
I think Cedar Crest Middle School, to build community, I think one of the most challenging things is that Cedar Crest Middle School is a very large middle school. And so what that means is that not everyone knows everyone. I think one of the best things that can happen in middle school, and here at Cedar Crest Middle School, before students get to high school, is take the opportunity to get to know people who are outside your circle of friends. Because you might learn something about people that you didn't know before that'll give you a different perspective. You might develop a different interest because you met somebody that maybe it's a club or an activity that you didn't have otherwise. And so you have that opportunity, so don't be afraid to go out and meet other people right here within your own school environment.
We have a diverse community here within South Lebanon and within the district. Embrace that. There's a number of different religions, cultures, races. Embrace that. That's the way it is. That's the way our country is. So I think if more people were willing to accept the differences in other people, things would be a lot better.
I think as a school, we can do a lot of the same things that we do once we're out of school. The old saying really probably applies: treat other people the way you want to be treated yourself.
As a school, I think we need to hear what our students are saying, listen to them.
Including everyone and giving everyone a fair share at coming up with a solution to a problem or hearing what they have to say. So I'd look to add people to your circles, take a step out, talk to somebody you don't normally do.
So stepping out of the norm, I think, would be my thing. Maybe talking to somebody you have never talked to before, because that may develop a relationship that you may never thought of. Oh, I never knew this person looked like this, or you become friends with that person.
One good way to build a community would be to realize that we're all here together as a team. And the only way to work that way is to communicate.
It's been a very unique experience in this building because we have come so far in so many different areas. Things like Falcons Care, where we include every student in this building in a care group, I think is a phenomenal thing that probably not many middle schools could say with complete confidence that everyone has a group that they fit into and everyone is part of something. I think when we talk about being on teams, that's super important. But when we get down into the little things we can do, saying hello to each other in the hallway, passing each other with a smile, greeting people as they come through our door or as we go in and out of classrooms. I think that's a little thing that goes a long way. Having positive comments to share with people, building people up instead of tearing people down. I think those are all really important things that come back to the culture of our school.
Get to know your classmates. I would encourage you to spend just a little bit of time and look at every one of your classmates without saying anything and just say to yourself, what do I know about that person? Do they have any brothers and sisters? Anything like that, and you would be surprised what you don't know.
I think the best thing we could do is to instill in our students this attribute, and I think it comes from Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, Dr. King said this. He said he didn't want his daughter to be judged by the color of her skin. He wanted her to be judged by the content of her character. Be the best possible person that you can be. And by doing that, that's how freedom will exist. That's how freedom will continue to exist. And that's how we can be better. And I think we can avoid a lot of these scenarios that we have been faced with lately.
I think the biggest things in terms of community or unity that we need to do is we need to realize that we're all responsible for it. We can't just say that it's something that somebody else has to create for us. We have to take that responsibility to be part of that and to make a difference. And a lot of this goes back to some of the things that I already said about how we treat other people, the way we do it with kindness. Do we listen to other people? Do we seek first to understand rather than try to make sure everybody understands us and our point of view? You know, do we try to understand other people? And I think that ability to listen and be kind can go a long way if we all do that towards unity.
All right, CCMS, you've heard from our most influential community leaders about things you can do to make a difference. They've talked about acceptance. They've talked about being the best you can be. They've talked about being positive and tolerant. They've talked about building relationships with each other. They've talked about greeting people and being friendly and kind to people. So now, what do you do? What do you choose to do to make a difference, not just in our school community, but in our local community, in our area, in our state, in our world? What is your choice? Today, we're going to talk about What's Your 17 in honor of those people who lost their lives at the latest school shooting in Florida. What are the 17 things that we will do as a school community to be better together than apart? What are the 17 things we can do to make a difference for everybody? As you think about your 17, what are you going to do? Think also about what we can do together. What are our 17 things going to be to make a difference for our community?